For a long time, I lived inside a prison. Not one made of walls or bars, but something far stronger: fear. It started with small things. I stopped answering the phone. Then I stopped opening the door. Later, I couldn't even walk outside without my heart racing. Every step felt like danger. Every decision came with panic. The world seemed too loud, too unpredictable. So I stayed home. I stayed safe. But safe slowly became isolated. And isolation became empty. I remember the day I realized how deep I had fallen. I was sitting on the floor in my bedroom. The sun was rising, but I hadn't slept. My hands were trembling. My chest was tight. There was no threat, no reason. Just fear, for no reason at all. Or maybe, fear of everything. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I felt like I was disappearing. That day, I knew something had to change. But I didn't know how. I had tried to be strong before. Friends said, "It's just anxiety," like it was something I could switch off. But they didn't understand what it's like to feel trapped inside your own mind. I wanted help. I just didn't know where to start. And then something happened. Something I never expected. It wasn't big. It wasn't loud. But it cracked the shell I had built around myself. It was the beginning of a fight, not against the world, but against my own fear. If you've ever felt small, afraid, or stuck, this story is for you. Stay with me. And if this feels familiar, don't forget to like and subscribe. You're not alone. It's strange how one moment can change everything. Mine was a rainy night, 1 year before I stopped going outside. I had just left work, umbrella in hand, tired but calm. The streets were wet, the city quiet. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Fast. Closer. I turned around, and someone grabbed my purse. I fought back, not because I was brave, but because I panicked. He pushed me hard. I hit the ground. My head hit the sidewalk. And just like that, the world didn't feel safe anymore. After that night, things changed. I started crossing the street when someone walked behind me. I stopped using headphones. I looked over my shoulder every few minutes. And then, slowly, I stopped going out at all. I told myself it was temporary. Just until I felt better. But weeks passed. Then months. And every time I tried to leave the house, my hands would shake. My chest would tighten. I'd imagine someone waiting outside, ready to hurt me again. I told no one. I smiled when people asked how I was doing. I lied easily. Just tired, I'd say. But inside, I was falling apart. My world became smaller every day. My bedroom, my hallway, my window. That was it. That was where I felt safe. But also where I felt like I was disappearing. There was one person who noticed, my neighbor, Mia. She used to see me every day through the window. One afternoon, she knocked on my door. I didn't answer. But she left a note. You're not invisible. I see you. And I'm here. I read that note 100 times. It didn't fix everything. But it made me cry. And that was the first time I had felt anything in weeks. I didn't know it then, but that small act of kindness would be the start of something I had long forgotten: hope. The worst day wasn't the night I was attacked. It wasn't even the day I realized I couldn't step outside. The worst day was the one when I stopped believing I would ever get better. I woke up, looked at the ceiling, and felt nothing. No sadness. No fear. No hope. Just emptiness. I stayed in bed the entire day. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I didn't move. It was like my body was still alive, but my mind had given up. I kept thinking, is this it? Is this who I am now? A shadow. A ghost. Someone who used to live but now just survives. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to keep living like that either. That's a terrifying place to be. A place where nothing hurts because nothing matters. It was that same night that Mia knocked again. This time, she didn't leave a note. She just sat outside my door and spoke through it. I don't know what happened to you, she said softly, but I know you're hurting. And I know you don't have to do this alone. I didn't reply. I couldn't. But her voice stayed with me long after she left. I stared at the ceiling for hours, hearing those words over and over. You don't have to do this alone. I had pushed everyone away for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. To be cared for. That night, I cried like I hadn't cried in years. It wasn't panic. It wasn't fear. It was grief for the person I used to be. And in the middle of that storm, something inside me whispered, "You're still here." I wasn't healed. Not even close. But that night, I made a silent promise: I would try again. One small step at a time. The next morning, I sat at the edge of my bed for a long time. My hands rested on my knees, shaking slightly. The window was open, and I could hear the world outside, cars passing, birds, voices. For weeks, those sounds felt threatening. But that day, they sounded distant. Like the world was calling me back. I stood up. My legs felt weak, like I hadn't used them in years. I walked to the door slowly. I placed my hand on the doorknob. I didn't plan to leave. I just wanted to open it. Just a little. Just to prove to myself that I could. It took 20 minutes before I turned the handle. When the door opened, my heart raced. My breath quickened. But I didn't step back. I stayed. One foot inside, one outside. The sunlight touched my face. The breeze brushed my arms. It was overwhelming. It was terrifying. but it was also beautiful. Then I saw Mia across the hall. She was watering her plants. She looked up, surprised. Then she smiled. No questions. No pressure. Just a smile that said, "I see you." I nodded. That was all I could manage. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a prisoner. I felt like a person. Later that day, I wrote in a notebook I had abandoned months ago. I wrote 5 words: "Today, I opened the door." That was it. No long speech. No big plan. But it was real. It mattered. The next day, I opened the door again. And I took one step outside. Just one. But that one step felt like a mountain. And when I stepped back inside, I didn't feel like I failed. I felt like I started. Recovery isn't a straight line. Some days I moved forward. Some days I stayed in bed. But now, I had a direction. And that changed everything. 2 weeks later, I woke up feeling different. Not brave. Not fearless. Just ready. I took a shower, got dressed, and tied my hair up like I used to when I still went to work. I stood by the mirror, staring at my reflection, adjusting my sleeves nervously. It wasn't about looking good. It was about remembering who I used to be and who I still could become. I walked outside with a destination in mind. The cafe on the corner. It wasn't far, just 5 blocks away, but for me, it felt like another continent. I walked slowly, watching every step. The noise was louder than I remembered. The people looked at their phones, at each other, but no one looked at me. That, somehow, made it easier. When I reached the cafe, I hesitated. I stared at the door like it might push me back. But it didn't. I opened it. I stepped inside. The smell of coffee, the sound of cups clinking, the warmth of morning sun through the windows, it all hit me at once. I had missed this. I hadn't realized how much. I ordered a tea. My voice shook, but I spoke clearly. The woman behind the counter smiled and said, "Coming right up." It was such a small interaction. But it felt massive. I sat by the window. I watched people walk by. And for the first time in a long time, I felt part of the world again. Not just an observer. Not just someone surviving. Someone living. I took out my notebook and wrote, "I went to the cafe today. I drank tea. I watched life move around me. And I didn't panic." It wasn't about defeating fear in one day. It was about claiming pieces of myself, one at a time. And that day, sitting by the window with my hands around a warm cup, I realized something simple but powerful. I was coming back. I used to believe that healing meant going back to who I was before the fear. But now I understand that version of me is gone. And that's not something to mourn. It's something to honor. Because she survived. She protected me when I couldn't face the world. She carried the weight of pain, of silence, of isolation. But I'm not trying to be her again. I'm becoming someone new. Someone braver. Someone softer. Someone who still feels fear, but walks anyway. These days, I still have quiet moments of panic. I still pause before walking out the door. But I don't stay frozen anymore. I breathe. I speak kindly to myself. And I take the next step. Every time I open a window, greet a stranger, write in my notebook, or sit alone in that cafe, I'm building the life I never thought I'd have again. A life where I am not small. A life where I am not hiding. A life where I choose to show up. I wish I could tell the version of me who sat on the bedroom floor that night, tired, broken, silent, that one day, she would smile again. That she would walk into the world with her head up. That fear wouldn't win. That she would learn not just to survive, but to live. And if you're listening to this, and part of you feels lost or afraid, please believe me when I say, this isn't your ending. It might be your beginning. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to start. If this story touched you, leave a comment and tell me, what step are you ready to take for yourself? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this message today. Your fear is real, but so is your strength. And your life is waiting for you.